that is the signature of these Taiwanese brown sugar cakes, is you're supposed to be able to like squish it down and then have it like rise again. Okay, so many of you have watched the review on the Tatung Rice Cooker, multi-cooker. It's like Taiwan's #1 rice cooker. And so today I have a recipe from the Yunhai Cookbook. This Taiwanese brown sugar sponge cake, I mean, it was also all over when I was in Taipei. Every time I was on the streets, I would like smell brown sugar somewhere, like in the air, and it would be these sponge cakes. The texture of this is quite unique because Taiwan is a place that really likes their sweet potato starch. They really like the chewiness of like glutinous sticky rice. So they very much enjoy that kind of texture. That is a texture that is very present here in this cake. It uses a Taiwanese black sugar, which is, you can pretty much just substitute it for brown sugar, but with a Taiwanese black sugar, it's ever so fragrant because of how they caramelize that sugar. So it's delicious. I love this recipe, and I'll probably talk about it later, is that it is naturally fermented. So a lot of these kind of like present day recipes, we like everything nice and quick. And so we'll put baking powder or baking soda into cakes just to get them, you know, like nice and airy in the middle. This particular recipe, classic, uses yeast. I always love like a natural ferment because one, it creates really good flavor, and usually for cakes like this, when you use yeast, you'll get a slight bit of tanginess in the background, depending on how long you ferment it. With this one, it's not actually too strong at all, but that yeast adds to the building of the flavor in the cake. But then also when you ferment, you also have different enzymes that break down the other components of the cake, the starches, the flours, the sugars as well. And so you're gonna get like a kind of like a better texture of the cake just because everything is broken down. So I am for a cake that is pretty much naturally leavened. So yeah, I think I try it in the end. I think I do. Do I? Okay. Making a little bit of a starter first. So get all that mixed up, cover it, and then wait until it doubles about in size. Just leave it in a warm place. So this step, if you used the Yunhai Cookbook, just wait until it gets bubbly and it thickens up a little bit. The longer that you do, the more burnt it will taste. So this step actually can be skipped, totally, which would make it a lot easier. But if you want a little bit of that burnt sugar flavor, just cook it a little bit. Now the Taiwanese will use honey towards the end. This is for flavoring, but this is a little bit for texture as well. For those that don't have honey, feel free to do, you know, like a golden syrup or just omit it. Okay? Maybe add a little bit more sugar and just omit it. So now I have more tapioca starch. Plain flour. Mix it around first. And then slowly add in my syrup. So if you add it all at once, you might end up getting lumps. It's not actually a lot of syrup, so it's okay. Start with a small amount and then whisk until you get no lumps and then just gradually thin it down. Oops. Add more water. Make sure we get it to like a nice battery consistency. So I added a bit of water to this already, but if your mix happens to be quite thick, feel free to just add, you know, 1 or 2 tablespoons more water to the mix, just to get it to kind of like this battery consistency. Powder, so. I've done here is I find that with cakes that don't have, you know, baking powder, baking soda in it, it's just with natural yeast. I know that when you steam it, you want it to be really high heat. And sometimes when you have the bottom to the metal, it kind of prohibits that from happening. So I'm gonna take the steamer tray from the Tatung steamer, and then I'm just gonna use that as my bottom to this cake pan. And this cake pan, I just kind of cut out everything. I smeared some of the batter just to use as glue. is just how it springs back. You know, Taiwan loves a good QQ, likes a good chew, a nice bite, a nice bounce. Definitely gonna make it. So, look at that. I think that is the signature of these Taiwanese brown sugar cakes, is you're supposed to be able to like squish it down and then have it like rise again. That is supposed to be how bouncy, how squishy it is. Okay. So, there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna try it out for you, but you can see it very much is just like kind of like any cake, right? It's super, super moist, especially coming out of the Tatung steamer. It was, you know, whenever you have steamed cakes, they're quite moist beings, okay? And it really lends itself to this kind of like starchy, spongy type of cake, okay? So that's gorgeous. What you're missing out on is just the smell, because it smells really, really quite good. So let's give these guys a try. I'm so excited. Oh wow. Surprisingly, the sesame actually does a lot. It like comes out quite strong. Hold on. So us making the caramel, quite nice, but if you're not into kind of like a burnt sugar, which kind of makes it a little bit more bitter, I'd say, then you can just skip it. It'll be that much easier. Texturally, I mean, flavor-wise, that is kind of the flavor of this. It is lightly, it's caramelly, and you can taste the burnt sugar, but it's light and almost so in terms of taste, it very much tastes like a caramel, like a lightly sweetened burnt caramel. If you are not somebody that is into kind of that burnt caramel flavor, which makes it, I would say, a bit more bitter, feel free to just skip it. I feel like it would be so much easier. You know, you don't have to make the caramel, and then it kind of, you know, quickens up the process that much more. But if you do like it, that's a good flavor for you. Because it is not overly sweet, which is perfect. I don't love, you know, cakes that are too sweet, but it has almost like it's like a very demure sweet, a very like basic kind of bread sweet. It's sweeter than that, but it's like a lightly sweetened kind of cake bread, I would say. I would cross it up with. What is kind of the amazing bit, though, is this texture. So it took me a little bit of time to just bite and talk again, so do it in real time again. The texture is different. I think it's going to be a lot different from what a lot of you are used to. It is, you know, both a mix of flour, which is our normal cake, but then starch. So some people use tapioca starch, some people use sweet potato starch. I've heard some people just using potato starch. I'm sure you can play around with it. But it gives that kind of like a, you know, like bubble tea keeps on coming to mind. It's not exactly, it's that like bubble tea bounce. It is a mix of it is a mix of a cake set by starch and flour. Okay, and when you set something via starch, you know that it kind of is like bouncy, it's kind of like gluey. Bad way of explaining it, but it is a different flavor, okay, or a different texture. See? It's kind of like a sticky texture. but it has like a really strong and nice bite to it. But it might take you longer to bite through. Okay. But it's wholey, right? The yeast did its job. So I think it's any time that you can just spend a little longer with cakes and, you know, to not need to use baking powder or baking soda, and you can just use this long process to using yeast, it produces that nice kind of like yeasty, malty flavor, especially with the brown sugar. I don't know if it's, the word is gummy, but people use it kind of as a bad thing, but Taiwanese and a lot of Asian people, we kind of like that like gummy, bouncy, you know, texture. And so that's what you're going to be getting from this. And, you know, a very fun process to make too. So let me know if you all want to see a whole food plant-based version, because I'm always like, oh, okay, maybe we try this completely with dates. It's going to change up the texture a lot. We'll do it with like dates, spelt flour, but maybe we will up the fermentation process so that it breaks down kind of all the starches and the sugars more, and you're going to get kind of a more balanced, gentle, like cake that's not going to be, you know, too tough. So, all right, that's it for now. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. Ta-da!